Hey everybody, what's going on? What's hot? What's hip? What's happening? What is shaking on your lovely Thanksgiving Eve? Tonight I'm going to tell you all about John Dillinger, see? I'm going to tell you about John Dillinger, see? Listen here, Muggsy. I'm going to tell you about John Dillinger, see? Hopefully all of you are having a great evening. We're going to rock and roll tonight. Don't ask me what I just got done doing. Okay, you can ask me. I had to reset the core audio in the terminal function of this computer, which means I had to go deep down into the programming and reset the core audio. Individual. A lot of people couldn't do that. I can. So we're going to have a show tonight. I'm excited about this show. John Dillinger is an interesting character because he was known as like a Robin Hood. And I'll get into all that, but he was extremely popular. Well, God, I don't want to get into the show too much. Hey, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all those things that help us serve the algorithm, the almighty, all-seeing, all-powerful, all-knowing algorithm. And by the way, it don't cost you no money. It don't cost nothing. You know, you can do that. It don't cost nothing. We have super chats. We have memberships. You can avail yourselves of those, and please turn on those gifted memberships because there's always some floating around here, and somebody might be nice enough to gift some memberships, although on this show I frankly doubt it. And incidentally, you don't have to say so, but this mic sounds a lot better now, doesn't it? Hey, listen. A different time. You change your time, and YouTube sucks at giving people notifications. They can sign up for notifications all they want. So you know what? You might wake the kids, phone the neighbors. Let's get some people in here. A lot of trolls would like to get in here. Of course, I've banned most of them. So. Actually, there's only 2 or 3 trolls. They just have 9,000 different names. You see, that's all right. Anyway, and then if I get through this quick enough, we will turn on the phone lines just so I can see if they work anymore. Because God knows there's nothing I love more than working on my computer. How many more minutes we got here? I'm starting at about 3. About 3 more minutes, and we'll do this again. And we'll do this once more with feeling. Interesting, because when I grew up, John Dillinger was a big thing, especially in my hometown. Because John Dillinger was born in my hometown, and he's buried in my hometown. And I'll tell you a little something about where he's buried and a few things about that that are kind of interesting. I'm going to tell this story right now, and the people who are here late won't get to hear it. You'll get to hear it. I was working for an ad agency in Indianapolis, and it was in a house, and it was the hot creative ad agency of all of Indianapolis. All of Indianapolis. And they moved into some cool offices downtown on Massachusetts Street. So, I just noticed a comment. I'll get to it in a minute. When we moved in there, it turned out my office and another guy's office were kind of over where John Dillinger, when they brought him from Chicago, they didn't have funeral homes with like refrigeration and stuff, so they had to put him in a grocery store. It was either a Standard or an IGA, I think, but our offices were where they kept the body until they buried him. Buried. That's Indiana talk. Before they buried him. Adam S. says, is this hentai you're looking at, Tom? Hentai? Does that involve poultry? I'm not familiar with. Let's see here. Dupa says, hey, Tom. Hey, you. How you doing? I'm doing great, Dupa. I am so fabulous right now. It's not even funny. Although I have so jacked with this computer. You go to the core audio portion of the terminal feature, which is the actual code of how a Mac operates. You don't want to mess with that too much. But then you go in there and you put, what is it? Kill all, core audio D, it's a code that you don't want to hear about. Let's see. The wolf says, "I thought you were done." Well, the wolf, that's because I'm scrappy. I'm scrappy. This show is an echo. Motherfucker, you start some shit with the word echo right now, and you're going to not be very high on my list for forever. Anyway. Oh, it's Julian Caesar. Sorry. I thought you were a troll. I take that back. No, it's not an echo, if you know what the word echo means. Hey, Dupa. See, because people sometimes feel like that I'm going to be nice. And does it seem like I'm trying to get a lot of viewers for this? Because, anyway, I think a smart person would say he really doesn't care. So, jeepers creepers. How much more time do I got? I'm going to open up my thing here because I'm really excited about this particular episode. I really, really am. I probably doesn't seem like it, but, oh, come on here. Anyway, I'm going to cover. I watched a 2-hour documentary on John Dillinger today to prepare for this. Oh, boy. Can I set the scene just a little bit here for you? Just a little bit. Now, John Dillinger was an outlaw during a period of time when most people, especially rural people, did not like banks. It was the Great Depression. The banks were seen as being like the cause of the Great Depression and having a lot to do with it. And they had all the money and they were foreclosing on people's houses and doing all sorts of stuff. So when a guy's stealing from the bank, a lot of people were like, good for him. By God, he got in there, got out, got his money, and off he went. So John Dillinger was this kind of playboy, very sought after. I can't believe how explosive this play. Well, it has quick feet, cords of muscle. Anyway, let's get into John Dillinger here. John Dillinger, by the way, you're going to find out a whole bunch of stuff about this guy. You're not going to believe it. He was obviously an American gangster during the Great Depression, and he commanded the Dillinger gang, which was accused of robbing 24 banks and 4 police stations for whatever reason. He was thrown in jail several times, but he escaped several times. He was charged but not convicted of the murder of an East Chicago, Indiana police officer who shot Dillinger in his bulletproof vest during a shootout. And it was the only time Dillinger was charged with homicide. He didn't like to hurt people. Well, he didn't mind hurting people, but he didn't want to kill anybody. And he only, hurt the people that wouldn't give him the money. Dillinger courted publicity. He was one of the first gangsters. He was an out there gangster, and the media just loved him. They painted these exaggerated accounts of his bravado and his colorful personality, and they described him as a Robin Hood type figure, which really he wasn't, but they described him that way. And in many cases, it's because he did little tiny things that made him seem like a regular Joe, just one of the gang. And J. Edgar Hoover, the director of the Bureau of Investigation and well-known crossdresser, used Dillinger as justification to evolve what they called at the time the Bureau of Investigation to the much more powerful Federal Bureau of Investigation. And that allowed them to chase people across state lines and be a little more liberal with their guns and things. Now, after evading police in 4 states I'll get to all that in a minute, because that's the ending. He was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, on Cooper Street. I've been there, the younger of 2 children. His parents married in 1887. He was born in 1903, and his father was a grocer and apparently a very unpleasant man. In an interview with reporters, Dillinger said that his father was very, very strict and believed in the adage, spare the rod and spoil the child. Now, his mother died when Dillinger was 4 years old, and at the same time, his older sister married a guy that produced 7 children. So she's the one that raised John Dillinger until their father remarried when he was like 9 years old to this woman, stepmother, that apparently John Dillinger did not like at all. And John Dillinger's dad had 3 kids with this woman, and she treated them a lot better than she treated John Dillinger. Now, as a teenager, Dillinger was in trouble for fighting and petty theft, and he had this really strange personality. He quit school to work in an Indianapolis machine shop, which at the time, was a good job, actually. And fearing that the big city of Indianapolis was going to corrupt his son, Dillinger's father relocated the family to Mooresville, Indiana, which is a little... Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, maybe South Bend, maybe Evansville. That's it. They're all small towns after that. Despite a new, rural life out in the country, Dillinger's very wild and rebellious kind of behavior was unchanged. In 1922, he was arrested for auto theft, at the tender young age of 19, and that kind of ended things with his dad. There's an early John Dillinger. Nice haircut. He's got that angle with the fade. He's a pioneer. Let me see here. Wolf. No, you can't mention the caves in Greencastle. Not until you fess up about those leaves that got set on fire under that car. If you want to. I'm sure it was a freak accident. In 1923, he's 20 years old. His troubles caused what happened to a lot of people across the United States. And I even heard this from people my age, where the people in the town came along and said, look, you're either going to join the military or you're going to jail. So he enlisted in the United States Navy, where he was a petty officer, 3rd class machinery repairman, because he had the machine shop experience, assigned to the battleship, the USS Utah. Now, he deserted when his ship was docked in Boston just a few months into his service and was eventually dishonorably discharged. So he goes back to Mooresville, where he meets this woman named Beryl, her name is Beryl, Beryl, Ethel Hovius. Try that one on for size. The two married in 1924, and despite his efforts to settle down, he couldn't find a job, so he started planning robberies with his friend, ex-convict Ed Singleton. Now, Dillinger and Singleton robbed a Mooresville grocery store, stealing $50, which was actually worth about $917 in today's money. During this robbery, Dillinger struck the victim on the head with a machine bolt wrapped in a cloth and carried a gun, which, although it discharged, it hit nobody. And while leaving the scene, the criminals were seen by a minister who these stories, by the way, aren't going to stop. A minister who recognized the two guys reports them to the police. They were picked up the next day. Singleton pleaded not guilty, but after Dillinger's father, who was a deacon, by the way, discussed the matter with Morgan County prosecutor Omar O'Hara. That's such an Indiana name. His father convinced Dillinger to confess to the crime and plead guilty without retaining a defense attorney. So Dillinger was convicted of assault and battery with intent to rob and conspiracy to commit a felony. He expected a lenient sentence of probation because of his father's discussion with O'Hara. but instead was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. Dillinger's father later told some reporters that he regretted giving him this crappy as hell advice and was appalled by the sentence, pleaded with the judge to shorten the sentence with no results at all for that. So he's en route to go to Mooresville to testify against his partner in crime, Singleton, and he escaped his captors, but was apprehended within just a very short period of time. Now, Dillinger would escape all the time. That was part of his thing. Singleton had a change of venue and was sentenced to a jail term of 2 to 14 years. So, he said not guilty. Meanwhile, Dillinger says guilty, and he gets a much longer sentence. By the way, Singleton was killed. These stories don't stop, okay, folks? Singleton was killed on September 2nd, 1937, when he fell asleep on some railroad tracks while drunk. He's drunken. He fell asleep on a railroad. Who falls asleep on a railroad track? And then who doesn't hear the train? So let's see here. I think I pissed off Julian Caesar. If I did, I'm sorry, Julian. But then again, not the best day to be. Just saying. I can't believe how explosive this program. It is explosive. Let's go down the list. There's quick feet, explosive, cords of muscle. Let's see what else is. Crowd favorite. The Wolf says, can I mention him hiding in our caves after robbing our bank now? Maybe. I don't know. I think this is a good time. This is a rotten time. You're supposed to let me do all this stuff. And then when I'm done doing this stuff, if I hadn't said anything, then go ahead. For crying out loud. See, people saying hi. We do have the most cheerful chat room on the internet, as verified by independent sources. You can. Did I do all the donating? Yeah, I think I did that part. What leaves getting set on fire under the car? Dupa, you've just done an imitation of the wolf, and you probably didn't even know it. Julian Caesar said, looks like they punched him in the nose before taking that picture. It does look that way, doesn't it? He got popped in the schnoz. Let's see here. Hello, Julian. People saying hi. People saying hi to me, Chelsea Hagglestein. Hi, Chelsea. Let's see. Hi, Triple D. People saying hi. People saying hi. People saying hi. All right, let me get back to my thing. Would you like another? No, I can't show that picture yet. You have to look at that one for a long time because we got a lot to cover here. I swear to God. All right. So he was sent to the Indiana Reformatory in Indiana State Prison between 1924 and 1933. He did an 8-year bid out of that 10 to 20 year sentence, and he developed a criminal lifestyle, which is what you do when you're locked up that way. When he was admitted to prison, he was apparently quoted as saying, I will be the meanest bastard you ever saw when I get out of here. Well, because sometimes you got to take a guy at his word. His physical examination at the prison showed that he had gonorrhea. Yes. And the treatment for gonorrhea at the time was super painful. I won't describe it for you, but part of it involved a wire being inserted, and the wire was like a fish hook in that when they pulled it back out, owie, is what I have to say about that. He became very resentful against society because of this long sentence that he got that he didn't feel he deserved because the other guy got a shorter one and his dad begged and all that stuff. So he became friends with a whole bunch of other criminals. Harry Pete Pierpont, Charles Mickley, Russell Clark, and Homer Van Meter. By the way, the Van Meter name, very, very famous in Indiana. Who taught Dillinger how to be a successful criminal. The men planned heists that they would commit soon after they were released. So they're in jail. They're just planning. We're going to do this one, and here's how you get in, and blah, blah, blah. And Dillinger also studied Herman Lamme's meticulous bank robbing system and used it extensensively throughout his criminal career. Dillinger's father, and this is before he became famous, began a public campaign to have him released and was able to obtain 188 signatures on a petition on May 10th, 1933. After serving 9.5 years, Dillinger was paroled. Released at the very height of the Great Depression, Dillinger, with very little prospect of finding employment as an ex-con, immediately returned to crime. As a matter of fact, just about a month later, Dillinger committed his first bank robbery, stealing $10,000. That's almost $250,000 in today's money, from a bank in New Carlisle, Ohio. And then just about 2 months after that, he robbed a bank in Bluffton, Ohio. Now, one of the reasons that he would go over into Ohio is that cooperation and the ability to track people across state lines isn't as fluid, or wasn't as fluid, as it is today. Not that they couldn't do it, but it just wasn't as... Anyway, tracked by police from Dayton, Ohio, he was captured and later transferred to Allen County Jail in Lemme, Ohio, to be indicted in connection to the Bluffton robbery. Now, after searching him before putting him into the prison, the police discovered a document which appeared to be a prison escape plan. They demanded Dillinger tell them what the document meant, but he refused. Earlier, Dillinger had helped conceive a plan to enable the escape of Pierpont, Clark, and 6 other prison acquaintances. He had friends smuggle guns into their cells, which they used to escape 4 days after being captured. And that group was known as the First Dillinger Gang, and it had the usual suspects and one additional guy named Red Hamilton, who was a member of the Herman Lamme gang. Herman Lamme, if you remember, was the meticulous bank robber guy. All right? So those guys arrived in Lima, Ohio in October, where they impersonated Indiana state police officers, claiming they had come to extradite Dillinger to Indiana. When the sheriff, Jess Sarber, asked for their credentials, Pierpont shot Sarber dead, then released Dillinger from his house. The 4 men escaped back to Indiana, where they joined the rest of the gang. So Dillinger is known to have participated with his gang in 12 separate bank robberies between June of 33 and June of 34. So basically a bank robbery every month. All right. Evelyn Billy Frechette met Dillinger in October of 1933, and they began a relationship the following month. That was kind of his main squeeze, I think it's fair to say. Speaking of main squeezes, I'll just let you look at this. This is Ms. Frechette right there. She went by a number of aliases: Ann Martin, Evelyn Spark, Evelyn Fischetti, Grace Edwards, Mrs. John Dillinger, Billy, not previously listed and missing for wanted, it says here, written in the margin. And Ann Martin is what she was going at as the time. She was at 5'3", 130. You know, maybe just a little heft. Just a little heft is all. Oh, damn it. I didn't put the picture up for you. I'm so sorry. There you go. There she is. Check her out. She's quite a looker. Now, this next escape is probably his most famous escape. January 25th, 1934, Dillinger and his gang are captured in Tucson, Arizona. Dillinger gets sent back to Indiana. He's escorted back by Matt Leach, chief of the Indiana State Police. Now, I'm just going to tell you a side story that's probably not in my thing, but it was in this documentary today, and I did remember it from past history. Matt Leach had a tremendous stutter, and he was just dead set on catching John Dillinger. He had the whole Indiana State Police always looking for him, always trying to find him, always just They called him 2 minutes late Leach because he would show up about 2 minutes after, or the police would, after Dillinger had robbed a bank. So anyway, that guy that wants him so bad. By the way, Dillinger would call him on the phone at his home and mock him with his stutter. Yeah, Dillinger didn't like this guy. So anyway, this guy takes him to the Lake County Jail in Crown Point, Indiana, all right, which is right up by Chicago. And he's jailed for the charges of the murder of the policeman that was killed during a Dillinger bank robbery in East Chicago on January 34. Local police boasted to area newspapers that the jail was escape-proof, and they posted extra guards as a precaution because Dillinger was known for busting out. Well, on Saturday, March 3rd, Dillinger was able to escape during morning exercises with 15 other inmates. Now, Dillinger produced a pistol, catching deputies and guards by surprise, and was able to leave the premises without firing a shot. Almost immediately afterwards, conjecture began to whether the gun he had was real or not. According to Deputy Ernest Blunk, Dillinger had escaped using a real pistol. FBI files, on the other hand, indicate that Dillinger used a carved fake pistol. All right, Sam Cahoon, a trustee who Dillinger took hostage in the jail, also believed Dillinger had carved the gun using a razor and some shelving in his cell. In another version, according to an unpublished interview with Dillinger's attorney, Louis Piquet, investigator Art O'Leary claimed to have snuck the gun in himself. Most people believe that Dillinger carved the gun and put shoe polish on it. Any shoe polish that was on his shoe, he would get it wet and just got it dark, and he basically bluffed his way out of that prison in Crown Point, Indiana. Dillinger was indicted by a grand jury and the Bureau of Investigation, precursor to the FBI, and organized a nationwide manhunt for him. Just hours after his escape from Lake County Jail, Dillinger reunited with his girlfriend, Billy Frechette. According to her trial testimony, Dillinger stayed with her for almost 2 weeks, but the two had actually traveled to the Twin Cities and taken lodgings at the Santa Monica Apartments in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where they stayed for 15 days. Dillinger then met one of his buddies, Red Hamilton, and the two mustered a new gang consisting of, dig this, Babyface Nelson's gang, including Babyface Nelson, Homer Van Meter, Tommy Carroll, and Eddie Green. 3 days after Dillinger's escape from Crown Point, that very gang, 3 days after he escapes, robs a bank in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A week later, they robbed the First National Bank in Mason City, Iowa. Yes. Now, giant shootout. All right. March 20th, 1934, Dillinger and Frechette relocated into the Lincoln Court Apartments in St. Paul, Minnesota, using the aliases Mr. and Mrs. Carl T. Hellman. Whatever. Daisy Coffey, the landlord, testified at Frechette's trial that she spent most evenings during Dillinger's stay observing what was happening. On March 30th, Coffey went to the FBI's St. Paul field office to file a report, including information about the couple's new Hudson sedan parked in the garage behind the apartments. As a result of this tip, the building was surveilled by 2 agents, but they didn't see anything unusual because the blinds were drawn. The next morning at approximately 10 a.m., one of the agents circled around the block looking for the Hudson, which was a pretty upscale car for the time. He parked near the apartments and remained in his car, watching his fellow agent and a St. Paul police detective pull up, park, and enter the building. 10 minutes later, Van Meter parked a green Ford Coupe on the north side of the apartment building. So while these 2 officers are knocking on the door, Frechette answers, and she only opened the door 2 to 3 inches. She said she wasn't dressed and to come back, and they said, well, we'll wait. And after waiting 2 to 3 minutes, they went to the basement apartment of the people taking care of the apartment and asked to use the telephone to call the Bureau of Investigation. They quickly returned, and they waited for Frechette to open the door. Then Van Meter, one of the gang members, appears in the hall and asked Coulter if his name was Johnson. Coulter said it wasn't. Coulter's the Bureau of Investigation guy, remember? And as Van Meter passed on the landing to the third floor, Coulter asked him for a name. Van Meter replied, "I'm a soap salesman." Asked where his samples were, Van Meter said they were in his car. Coulter asked if he had any credentials. Van Meter said no and continued down the stairs. Coulter waited 10, 20 seconds, then followed Van Meter, and as he reached the lobby on the ground floor, Van Meter began shooting at him. Coulter fled outside, being chased by Van Meter, and then Van Meter ran into the front entrance. Recognizing Van Meter, one of the other agents pointed out the Ford to Coulter and told him to disable it. Coulter shot out the left rear tire. While Coulter stayed with the Ford, the other agent went to the corner drugstore and telephoned the local police, then the Bureau's St. Paul office, but couldn't get through because both lines were busy. Van Meter, the guy from the gang, meanwhile escaped by hopping on a passing coal truck. You can't make this up. You can't. Frechette, in her trial testimony, said that she told Dillinger the police had shown up after she spoke to them through the door, and upon hearing Van Meter firing at Coulter, Dillinger began shooting through the door with a Thompson submachine gun. Yes, a Tommy gun, sending the agents scrambling for cover. Dillinger then stepped out of the building and fired another burst at one of the agents. The agent's shooting back with his revolver, but he ran out of ammo almost immediately. However, he did hit Dillinger in the left calf with one of his 5 shots. So Dillinger then returns to the front entrance, and once the agents had retreated, Dillinger and Frechette hurried down the stairs, through the back door, drove away in the Hudson. After this shootout, Dillinger and Frechette drove to Minneapolis, to a friend's apartment. And they called this doctor, Dr. Clayton May, in downtown Minneapolis. And the doctor drove Dillinger to an apartment belonging to another person, his nurse. And she had not only nursing services, but a bed for this doctor's patients, most of whom were criminals, okay? These were not nice people. This doctor was not a nice doctor. And the criminals he would take to this nurse's house so that his regular patients wouldn't be all creeped out by John Dillinger walking in. So Dr. May treated Dillinger's wound with antiseptics. He visited Dillinger on the 2nd of May, just hours before he was mortally wounded by the Bureau in St. Paul. Dillinger convalesced at May's until April 4th. May was promised $500 for his services, but he didn't get a penny. So, I don't know how we're going to get through all this crap. There's just too much of it. After all this crap happens in Minneapolis, Dillinger and Frechette traveled back to Mooresville, Indiana to visit Dillinger's father. And this is just a couple days after he gets shot. And he spent the time contacting family members, particularly his half-brother Hubert Dillinger. And so Hubert and Dillinger left Mooresville about 8 o'clock, went to Leipsic, Ohio, which is about 200 miles away, to see the parents of their gangster buddy, Harry Pierpont. The Pierponts weren't at home, so they drove back. At about 3:30 in the morning, they rammed a car driven by Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Manning near Noblesville, Indiana, which incidentally is an in-county rival of my high school. It's in Hamilton County, Indiana. It's 10 miles from where I used to live growing up. And this happened because Hubert fell asleep behind a wheel. They crashed through a farm fence and went about 200 feet into the woods. Now, both men made it back to the Mooresville farm. If they walked all the way from Noblesville to Mooresville, that is a hell of a hike. Swarms of police showed up at the accident scene within hours. Found in the car were maps, a machine gun magazine, a length of rope, and inexplicably a bullwhip. Don't ask me, I don't know. According to Hubert, his brother planned to pay a visit with the bullwhip to one of his former one-armed shyster lawyers at Crown Point, Joseph Ryan, who had run off with a retainer that Dillinger had given him. At about 10:30 in the morning, Billy, Hubert, and Hubert's wife purchased a black four-door Ford V8, registering it in the name of Mrs. Fred Penfield, Billy Frechette. At 2:30 p.m., Hubert and Billy picked up the V8 and returned to Mooresville. Now, the next day, the Dillingers enjoyed a family picnic while the FBI had the farm under surveillance nearby. Later in the afternoon, suspecting that they were being watched, agents J.L. Garrity and T.J. Donegan were cruising the vicinity in their car. The group left in separate cars at separate times. Billy drove the new Ford V8 with two of Dillinger's nieces, Mary and Alberta Hancock. Dillinger was on the floor of that car. It was later seen but not recognized by Donegan and Garrity. Eventually, Norman, driving the V8, proceeded with Dillinger and Billy to Chicago, where they escaped and separated from Norman. The next day, this is all day, Monday, April 9th, Dillinger had an appointment at a tavern at 416 North State Street. Sensing trouble, Billy went in first. She was promptly arrested by agents, but refused to reveal Dillinger's whereabouts. Dillinger was waiting in his car outside the tavern and then drove off unnoticed. And Billy Frechette and John Dillinger never saw each other again. That was it. That was it. Dillinger, though, was despondent after Billy was arrested. The other gang members tried to talk him out of rescuing her, but Van Meter encouraged him by saying that he knew where they could find bulletproof vests. That Friday morning, late at night, Dillinger and Van Meter took a hostage, Warsaw, Indiana police officer Judd Pittenger. They marched Pittenger at gunpoint into the local police station, where they stole several more guns and bulletproof vests. And after separating, Dillinger picked up Hamilton, who was recovering from the Mason City robbery. And then those two traveled to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where they visited Hamilton's sister, Anna Steve. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. And let me read some of your comments here, I guess. I guess we're still on the air. Let's see here. Can I mention the caves? We'll get to the caves. Okay. Hey, Dupa. Hey, Julian. Julian's people saying hi. People saying hi. Chelsea says they spelled my name weird when my family got off the boat. No, they didn't. It's Chelsea. I can see it really. I'm sorry, Tom. Please forgive them. They were Scribners. At least they weren't Lubners. Mrs. Lubner. Wolf says, oh, I thought it was laying it on a table and using a mallet. People saying hi? People saying hi. The Wolf says, I bet they didn't take enough pictures of his head again. They got better than that, Wolf. They got better than that. I'll just go ahead and... since you brought it up, I was not going to show this till later, and this chronologically doesn't fall in the path with our thing here, but... No, they did an entire cast of his head, Wolf. They did the whole thing there, and saved some of his hair. The Wolf says, can't see her. Sorry. Hello, this is Martin. Hi, Martin. Martin with insecurity. The dreaded soap pistol. Yeah, it was wood or soap. They carved something and covered it in shoe polish. Hello, this is Martin. I thought it was Mr. Brown. Imagine having the name of a senorita picture. Oh, sorry, that's a Derringer, not a Dillinger. Dupa says, someone robbed the bank in my town, walked down the block to a hotel room they were staying in, and got away with it. The next day they tried it again and got caught. Don't be greedy. Well, they made so much money. They got so much cash, but the world was a cash world back then, but it was expensive to be an outlaw. You had to buy new cars and all that other stuff. Dupa, sounds like Vegas. I live in the opposite of Vegas. The DDLD says, this is a late one for you, Gully. Are we on a basis where you can call me Gully? Really? I don't know why that's always bugged me, but it does. But I'm over it now. John Naylor says, how cool for Johnny D, his own Halloween mask. Yeah, man. Let's see. Yes. I don't know what the yes is. It's just yes. Okay, well, I don't know. You're with the band. I'm with God's Downbeat. Okay, so this next one, too, is, and it doesn't really go on for as long as I would have liked it to in my little recitation here, but the Bureau received a telephone call on Sunday morning, April 22nd. Now, keep in mind, this is 1934, and this is only like 3 weeks after all the shooting and whatever back in Minneapolis. John Dillinger, several of his Confederates were hiding out at a small vacation lodge called Little Bohemia near present-day Manitowish Waters, Wisconsin. Dillinger and some of his gang were upstairs in the lodge and began shooting out the windows while the Bureau's agents ducked for cover. Dillinger and his men fled from the back of the building, but that really doesn't... These guys pulled up and thought they were going to do something, and just submachine guns just start opening up on them like crazy. And then those guys escaped from Little Bohemia, which, by the way, was an excellent place for them to hide. But there's always people that would call, you know. And incidentally, a lot of times the people that ratted out John Dillinger were not well received in their town. So by July of 1934, Dillinger had absconded, and the feds didn't have any information as to where he was. And in fact, gone to Chicago, where he used the alias of Jimmy Lawrence, a petty criminal from Wisconsin, who actually did bear a close resemblance to Dillinger. So Dillinger starts working as a clerk, and he found that in a large metropolis like Chicago, he was able to live an anonymous existence for a while. What he didn't realize was that the federal agents, like headquarters for looking for him, yeah, that happened to be based in Chicago. So when the authorities found Dillinger's blood-spattered getaway car on a Chicago side street, they were pretty sure he was in Chicago. So according to certain accounts, as early as 1934 March, before all this stuff happened, Dillinger was getting interested in plastic surgery, and he asked Art O'Leary, one of his gang members, to check with his lawyer about these kind of things. So at the end of April, you know, he'd been in Chicago for a little while, his lawyer, Piquette, paid a visit to his old friend, Dr. William Loser. Loser had practiced in Chicago for 27 years before being convicted under the Harrison Narcotic Act in 1931. Basically, that means the doc was getting high on his own supply. He was sentenced to 3 years at Leavenworth, but was paroled early, like after a year, with the help of Piquette, the same lawyer that Dillinger used. He later testified that he performed facial surgery on himself and obliterated the fingerprint impressions on the tips of his fingers by the application of caustic soda. Caustic soda. You won't find that in your grocer's aisle. Caustic soda is sodium hydroxide, which is basically lye and caustic soda put together. It's not an organic compound, and it's bad stuff. Piquette said Dillinger would have to pay $5,000 for the plastic surgery. $4,400 split between Piquette, Loser, and O'Leary, and $600 to Dr. Harold Cassidy, who would administer the anesthetic. The procedure was done at the home of Piquette's longtime friend, 67-year-old James Probosco, at the end of May. That's when it was scheduled for anyway. So on the 28th of May, Loser was picked up at his home at 7:30 in the evening by O'Leary and Cassidy. The three of them drove to Probosco's place. Dillinger chose to have a general anesthetic. Loser later testified, I'll use my gangster from the 30s voice. I asked him what work he wanted done. See, he wanted 2 warts, moles, removed from the right lower forehead, between the eyes, and one at the left angle, outer angle of the left eye. Shay wanted a depression of the nose filled in, a scar, large one to the left of the medium line of the upper lip, excised, wanted his dimples removed, and wanted the angle of his mouth drawn up. He didn't say anything about the fingers to me on that day, see? He kept clam, he dummied up, you see? Anyway. Cassidy administered an overdose of ether, which caused Dillinger to suffocate and begin to turn blue and stop breathing. Loser pulled Dillinger's tongue out of his mouth with a pair of forceps, at the same time forced both elbows into his ribs. Dillinger gasped and started breathing again, and then they just continued the procedure with only a local anesthetic. Loser removed several moles on Dillinger's forehead, made an incision in his nose, incision in his chin, and tied back both cheeks. Yes, well, Loser met with Paquette again on Saturday, June the 2nd, and Paquette said more work was needed on Dillinger, and that Van Meter now wanted the same work done to him. So now all the gang's getting involved. Also, both of them now want work done on their fingertips, and the price for the fingertip procedure would be $500 per hand or $100 a finger. That's the going rate, right? We've all wanted our fingertips removed of any prints. Loser used a Mr. This is just awful. This is awful. He used a mixture of nitric and hydrochloric acid, and that mixture was known at the time as aqua regia. But it was nitric and hydrochloric acid, ratio of about 1 to 3. And this is a fuming liquid. It was like something you'd see in a Frankenstein movie. It's colorless, but it turns yellow, orange, or red within seconds from the formation of nitasyl chloride and nitrogen dioxide. You don't care. So anyway, Loser met O'Leary the next night in Chicago. They once again drove to Probasco's, and Dillinger, Van Meter, Probasco, Pickett, Cassidy, and Peggy Doyle, Probasco's girlfriend, were all there. And Loser testified he worked for only about 30 minutes before O'Leary and Pickett left. They cut the skin off the fingertips all the way down. The epidermis, that's your layers of skin, completely removed down to the muscle. And then the acid, and then the alkaloid to kill the acid. And they did that as many times as they needed to get rid of the stuff. Yeah. So anyway, it all ended up that Dillinger just didn't like any of the plastic surgery he'd done. O'Leary said that Dillinger told him that son of a bitch has gone out for one of his walks, and didn't know that when he would return. Probasco raved about the craziness of Dillinger, saying he was always going for walks and was likely to cause the authorities to locate where he was staying. And so anyway, just out of sheer happenstance, on Friday, July 27th, Probasco fell to his death from the 19th floor of the Bankers Building in Chicago while in custody. Ow. And then on Thursday, August 23rd, Homer Van Meter was shot and killed in a dead-end alley in St. Paul by Tom Brown, the former St. Paul police chief, and then current chief, Frank Cullen. So, okay, Polly Hamilton, teenage runaway from Fargo, North Dakota. She met Anna Inova Aclivia in Gary, Indiana, and worked periodically as a prostitute in Anna's brothel until marrying Gary, a police officer, Roy O'Keefe, in 1929. In the summer of 1934, the now 26-year-old Polly Hamilton was a waitress in Chicago at the S&S Sandwich Shop. She had remained friends with these folks and was in the living space with the Sages. Dillinger and Hamilton, a Billy Frechette look-alike, met in June of 1934 at the Barrel of Fun nightclub at 4541 Wilson Avenue. Dillinger introduced himself as Jimmy Lawrence and said he was a clerk at the Board of Trade, and they dated until Dillinger's death at the Biograph Theater in July of 1934. Now, we're getting to the end here, folks. We really are. Let's just go ahead and show you this here. What do we got here? Late one for you, Gully. John Naylor says, Will Rogers said, one day Dillinger is going to get mixed in with civilians and get hurt. Well, kind of. How does Tom not like his last name? What a great last name for an athlete. Gully? I don't know, man. Ditch the water runs through. That does look like a Halloween mask. It does. Dupa, he is the Gringo Giant. I am. I'm also... I have so many nicknames. Scrap Iron was one of them. Gambiota, of course. The Cat. Oh, yeah. A lot of them. Lies. Why did you call me? Lies. All of them lies. I will kill you. I will kill you. I don't know what that means. It was just dramatic enough to be funny. Dupa, happy Thanksgiving. We got people saying, hi, Terry, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Terry said, you didn't call me? I was getting lady with chat spelling it. I think that's somebody else's shtick. Wolf says, he would have made a great fireman. Me? Maybe. We lived in the best times of history. Thankful. Me too. Dupa says, not over yet. We are in the collapse. Well... all I need is another 20 years, man. Where says, with his Bickerby head, he could have been Montag's partner. Oh, Fahrenheit 451. Louis Buttonley Jr., Sim Pickens, yes. Somebody go back there and get a shitload of dimes. Soviet Skunk says, tell us the Texas Roadhouse story. Well, you know... it is, now that you mentioned Soviet Skunk, let me see if I can get it up here. You can see Texas, whoops, I can't reveal the name of that well-known adult film star there, but the Texas Roadhouse is on our list. Slim Pickens is in the Cowboy Hall of Fame. He's also in the Missile Riding Hall of Fame, which is, hey, check that out. It's the Biograph Theater with Manhattan melodrama playing. Those people have all assembled in front because of what I'm about to tell you next. That was a tease. Divisions of Investigation Chief J. Edgar Hoover created a special task force, headquartered, as we mentioned, in Chicago, to locate Dillinger. Now, on July 21st, that woman I mentioned earlier, Anna Kumpanas, a madam from a brothel in Gary, also known as the Woman in Red, contacted the FBI. She was a Romanian immigrant, and she was being threatened with deportation for low moral character. And so to improve the viewpoint of her character, she ratted a guy out. So she offers the agents information on Dillinger in exchange for their help in preventing her deportation. The FBI agreed to her terms, but she was later deported nonetheless. That's the way the government ran back then. Kumpanas revealed that Dillinger was spending time with another prostitute, Polly Hamilton, and that she and the couple were going to see a movie together the next day. She agreed to wear an orange dress so police could easily identify her. She was unsure of which two theaters they would attend, the Biograph or the Marlboro. On December 15, 1934, pardons were issued by Indiana Governor Harry G. Leslie for the offenses which Anna Kumpanas was convicted. Kumpanas stated that on Sunday afternoon, July 22nd, Dillinger asked her whether she wanted to go to the show with him, Polly and him. She asked him what show he was going to see. He said he would like to see the theater around the corner, meaning the Biograph Theater, which you see pictured next to me. She stated she was unable to leave the house to inform Melvin Purvis or Martin, the two agents on the case, about Dillinger's plan to attend the Biograph, but as they were going to have fried chicken for the evening meal, she told Polly she had nothing in which to fry the chicken, was going to the store to get some butter. And while at the store, she called, Mr. Purvis and informed him of Dillinger's plan to attend the Biograph that evening, and at the same time, she actually did get the butter. She then returned to the house so Polly would not be suspicious that she went out to call anyone. A team of federal agents Among them, East Chicago Police Department. They weren't called because the Bureau felt they were corrupt and couldn't be trusted. Hoover and Purvis, Melvin Purvis, who was a big figure in the early FBI, they wanted the credit too. So not wanting to take the risk of another very embarrassing Dillinger escape, the police were divided into two groups. And on Sunday, one team was sent to the Marlboro Theater on the city's west side, and another surrounded the Biograph Theater on the north side. At approximately 8:30 p.m., Sage, Hamilton, and Dillinger were observed entering the Biograph Theater, which was showing the crime drama Manhattan Melodrama featuring Clark Gable, Myrna Loy, and William Powell. During the stakeout, the Biograph's manager thought the agents were criminals preparing for a robbery. So he calls the Chicago police, who dutifully responded and have to be waved off by federal agents who told him they were on a stakeout for an important target. When the movie ended, Purvis stood by the front door and signaled Dillinger's exit by lighting a cigar. Both he and the other agents reported that Dillinger turned his head and looked directly at the agent as he walked by, glanced across the street, then moved ahead of his female companions, reached into his pocket but didn't get his gun, and ran into a nearby alley. Okay? The three men pursued Dillinger into the alley and fired. Clarence Hurt shot Dillinger twice, Charles Winston 3 times, and Herman Hollis once. He was hit from behind and fell face first to the ground. He was actually only struck 4 times, 2 bullets grazing him and 1 causing a superficial wound to his right side. The fatal bullet entered through the back of his neck, severed the spinal cord, passed into his brain, and exited just under the right eye, which you could actually see in this death mask there, severing 2 sets of veins and arteries. An ambulance was summoned, though it was soon apparent Dillinger had died from the gunshot wounds. He was officially pronounced dead at Alexian Brothers Hospital. According to investigators, Dillinger died without saying a word. Winstead was later thought to have fired the fatal shot, and as a consequence, received a personal letter of commendation from J. Edgar Hoover. 2 female bystanders, Teresa Paulus and Etta Natalski, were wounded. Dillinger bumped into Natalski just as the shooting started. She was shot and taken to Columbus Hospital. Dillinger's death came only 2 months after the deaths of fellow notorious criminals, Bonnie and Clyde. There were reports of people dipping their handkerchiefs and skirts into the pool of blood that had formed as Dillinger lay in the alley as keepsakes, because that's the way they were back then. Dillinger's body was available for public display at Cook County Morgue. An estimated 15,000 people viewed the corpse over a day and a half. As many as not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 death masks, like the one you see right now, were also made. Now, John Dillinger was born in Indianapolis, and he died and is buried in Indianapolis at Crown Hill Cemetery. Now, Crown Hill Cemetery is a very large cemetery which borders 38th Street in Indianapolis, and some of the most famous people from Indiana and Indianapolis are buried there. This is not, a place out in the middle of nowhere where you can bury John Dillinger, nobody will say anything. No. This is a very upscale, very prestigious cemetery. His gravestone has been replaced countless times because of 2 things: people chipping off pieces of it as souvenirs, and then people just taking the whole thing as a souvenir. There you go. Dillinger's associate, Hilton Crouch, who died in 1976, is buried just a few yards away from John Dillinger. I won't go into all of the John Dillinger stuff, but in 1935, a movie was released, Public Hero #1. Now, John Dillinger, I believe, was Public Enemy #1. And so that was a big Dick Dillinger movie, but it was greatly fictionalized, okay? It wasn't really real. In 1941, Humphrey Bogart played a Dillinger-like role in High Sierra, which was loosely based on Dillinger's life. Lawrence Tierney, in 1945, played the title role in the very first movie dramatization of Dillinger's career called Dillinger. In 1957, Director Don Siegel's movie. Don Siegel, by the way, very involved with the Dirty Harry franchise and Clint Eastwood. Babyface Nelson featured Mickey Rooney as Nelson and Leo Gordon as Dillinger. 1965, Young Dillinger featured Nick Adams as John Dillinger and Robert Conrad as Pretty Boy Floyd. In 1969, Marco Ferrari's movie Dillinger is Dead includes documentary footage of the real John Dillinger, as well as newspaper clips. There's a movie narrated by Rod Serling. It's a documentary called Appointment with Destiny, The Last Days of John Dillinger. Dillinger, written by John Milius, with Warren Oates playing Dillinger, was made in 1973. And they treat him very sympathetically, much like the anti-hero themes popular in movies like Bonnie and Clyde, which came out just a few years earlier. There's a movie called The Lady in Red, which was released in 1979, with Pamela Sue Martin as the eponymous lady in the red dress. By the way, Anna Kompanis' dress was orange, but under the lights of the biograph, looked red. And the fact that she stayed out there for a couple of seconds was what alerted the FBI agents to the fact that Dillinger was at that theater and not the theater on the West Side. There's a movie that came out in 2009 called The Public Enemies. It was an adaptation of a book. Johnny Depp is Dillinger. Marion Cotillard is Billy Frechette, and Christian Bale is Melvin Purvis in that one. So there you go. There's a whole bunch of other references. There's pictures of his gang who, let me just show you the pictures of his gang because you're really going to enjoy this. Let me share the screen here. Let me just share this screen. There you go. Bunch of nice guys, don't you think? Don't you think these are a bunch of nice fellas? Let me see if this will work for me. Yeah, look at those fellas. Aren't they nice? There's Homer Van Meter in the upper left-hand corner, who really was with him a lot. Next is John Red Hamilton. Let's see, most of those guys, there's Babyface Nelson. A lot of those guys just, you know, they died on train tracks and stuff. So anyway, one of them lived pretty long. But anyway, any old way. That's really all I have to tell you about. And I'm leaving out a lot of stuff. That's all I have to tell you about. God, we've already gone an hour. Jeez. Tell us about my Jaguar. Well, I was driving it today, and I got an O2 sensor warning, but those go away sometimes. So I got out my OBD reader, and I just went ahead and reset it. And worst comes to worst, I'll just throw in another catalytic converter. It's like $700 and we'll be good. But it's probably that oxygen sensor, and I'm not going to worry about it too much. A lot of times you reset it and drive on it. So that's what happened today. Nothing to worry about. It's a 0430 error, so it could be a number of things, but it's probably that. We'll meet again. Don't know how, don't know when, but we'll meet again. That's right. Happy trail. Melvin Purvish. Meet again some sunny day, says Dupa. Yes, we will. One pair of silk stockings. Purvish. Nick Adams, the worst actor. Well, he died pretty early, didn't he? He was in a lot of those, because he was in The Rebel, I think, was a TV, and he was in a lot of different other things, but when he got older, he was in a lot of Japanese movies. He's like the American guy in a ton of Japanese movies. Well, not a ton, but enough. What a group of friendly-looking people. Very pleasant people, yeah. They all also look like they have about 3 sticks of butter in their hair. I mean, it's like, brewed cream, a little dab of Hallelujah. Brewed cream, you look so debonair. Brewed cream, the gals all pursue ya. They love to run their fingers through your hair. All right, let's see if I can get this phone lines open here. I'm not going to keep them open for very long, but the trolls like to call in sometimes. You know, it's funny. I get on other people's shows, and boy, do the trolls come out. But on my show, they don't. I think it's because of the way I speak to them when I'm on my show. I don't think they like it. I don't think they like it. Not one bit. And I just said I'm opening up the phone lines, and 10 people ran out of here. Not that anybody's going to call it. It's called buttered toast hair, man. That was a big gangbang. No wonder they were all caught. Yeah, they all got in one place. What do they do that for? But John Dillinger was a folk hero when he was alive, and he remained a folk hero. My grandpa would talk about him, and he's like, well, I don't approve of what he did, but the banks back then, I mean, they would immediately just go in there, foreclosing on people. They were doing this, doing that, and the fix was in. The fix was in. And then he said, you know, that he hid out in them caves when he robbed that bank in Greencastle. I said, really, Grandpa? Tell me about it, Grandpa. Well, you see, what happened was, he got this fella, I'm not going to mention any names, to wait until there's a bunch of leaves under a car. Now, I don't know how it happened, but them leaves caught on fire, so the car caught on fire, and while them police was all, swarming to that car on fire, robbed a bank, hid out in the caves. That's the way they did it back then. Rob a bank, hide out in the cave. It's the Hoosier way. I have a 1/4 pound of hamburger that I need to do something with tonight. Man, people are dropping like flies. For the love of Mike, come on. Oh, for crepe sakes. What the hell's going on? Oh, for the love of Mike. All right, I don't know who's still here, but I guess I shouldn't have opened the phone lines. But that's John Dillinger, and I was excited about it. And we had problems earlier, and I had to do some things to this computer. You ain't gonna, you know what I mean? All right. I'm closing the phone lines down. Why waste the time? Nobody's calling, and there's nobody here. Man, I hope you guys have a great Scott. Great Hogan's goat. Anybody messaging me? What the hell is this all about? Oh, just a happy Thanksgiving. Okay. All right. Let me see. Let's see here. Thanks for the late show tonight, Tom. Thanks for explaining leaves under the car. Have a great Thanksgiving. Anyone actually Dupa, thank you so much for the $10. Very, very nice of you. You're just a wonderful person. And that's not because of the $10. It's, whatever. But Dupa, no. I incorporated fictionally, for the purposes of my storytelling, an actual incident which happened much later in the late 70s in Greencastle, Indiana, where a car on a street with some passers-by had a bunch of leaves underneath it, and somehow those leaves combusted, and the car was burnt asunder. So there you go. Dupa is now a legend. Well, Dupa's been a legend. Dupa's the first person that ever supported this program with any sort of financial anything. And I will never forgive her for that. No, I will never forget her for that. Plus, let's forget that. She is, without fail, positive and friendly and insightful, and just the kind of person that every streaming host with 3 people watching them wants in their room of chat. Their room of chat. Yes. So I hope all of you guys have the bestest, most wonderfulest Thanksgiving. I hope that you do not have to deal with John Dillinger ever. You know, there's a story of what an absurd story. Yes. Wolf, I finally caught up to you and well, we've kept it a little masked because we don't want, I don't know what the statute of limitations is on Carson. That's arson on a car. I call it Carson. But you know, you guys crack me up. Well, there's always. That was my mom you hanged up on. That's one of the best stories. I'll go ahead and tell it. There was this guy named Nick Dervenus. Now, the first thing Nick Dervenus, I mean, I used to love the Doors, but that guy at 6:30 every frickin' morning in our dorm would play the L.A. Woman album at full volume, all the way up and down the hall. I very quickly did not like the Doors. And so Nick had this phone that had this giant, long extension cord. I mean, it was like 50 feet long. He switched out the one that was on his phone. And he would open his door and walk up and down the hallway having his phone conversation. Not quietly. And it's like, by the way, Nick Dervenus was also 18 years old and male pattern baldness was rampant on him. He was chubby and hairy, and so he's up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down with his damn phone, bothering everybody. And so there were times, because he did this, that he would get, 50 feet down the hall away from where his phone, because he'd taken his phone and stationed it right next to the door to have more room. Well, somebody by the name of Wolf was walking down the hallway, and I think I might have said, "Man, can you just keep that in your room?" So the Wolf's walking by. He's walking by his door, and he just sees that phone thing there, and he just click, hung up on whoever he was talking to. And that's when Nick Dervenus said the famous line, "Hey, man, that was my mom you hanged up on." And then the Wolf's laughter for a good 30 seconds as we went into his room and closed the door. I don't remember whether the elusive Brad was with us. He may have been, he may not have been, I don't know. But Brad, I just definitely, we've got a line on Brad. We haven't heard back. Wolf's in charge of this, not me. He wouldn't respond to me. But we've got a line on him. We don't have any response yet that I know of. I'm pretty sure the Wolf would have called me or messaged me or something if we'd have heard from Brad. And we want to hear from Brad. And we want to see if Brad ever changed his work ethic. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Who knows? How dare you repeat such inflammatory stories? You seem to forget it was I that put you on that throne. Yes, well, now the student has become the master. In the days of the Greeks and the Romans, it was just considered good manners. Okay, well, Dupa says, that guy sounds like a douche. He was a douche. He probably still is a douche. I ran into him after school. I was playing pickup out at Lawrence Central, and he went to Lawrence Central, and he showed up, and I just went, man, I'm going to have a field day with Nick Dervenus. Come on, Nick, post up on me. I want to hurt you, foul you. Okay, well, let me tell you another story. I don't believe. Well, I'm sure it wasn't the wolf that said he was going to do this, but because of the walking up and down and the playing of the L.A. Woman album by The Doors, a rather not so nice person on our floor indicated to Nick that one day when Nick went to the shower in the morning, he was going to do a very, very disgusting and inhuman thing commonly associated with college-age boys that don't have a girlfriend. He was going to distribute his essence on Nick Dervinus's doorknob. So Nick goes down to the shower, and this guy doesn't do what he said he was going to do, but he took some cream rinse, which, Duba, you're a lady, you probably know what that looks like, and he put it on the door handle. There's big strings of it and stuff, and Nick came back, and of course we're all perched by our doors to see what would happen, and all of a sudden we hear, "What did you do on my door?" When he grabbed the handle. And these are the things we did back in the day to amuse ourselves. And happy Thanksgiving. All right, that's going to do it for tonight. I maybe I shouldn't have come back and done a show. I don't know. If somebody wants me to do a show tomorrow, fine. If I get in the mood, fine. I don't know. I'm thankful for lots and lots and lots and lots of things. I'm just in a really bad mood right now. I got to get rid of it before I get in front of the nuns tomorrow. Otherwise, I might say something. About the nuns. And I shouldn't. They're wonderful ladies. You guys have a happy Thanksgiving. All I hope it's so wonderful for you. And that old clock on the wall says whatever it wants to. You don't have to stay here. But until next time, we'll see you next time.